if you guys would, get your Bibles out and turn to Romans chapter 1. Don't get scared when I say this, but we're going to go from chapter 1, verse 1 to chapter 3 and verse 20 today. Because well, Pastor David's in Israel, and I'm really kind of filling in. And he'll be gone for 5 weeks, and you just can't get real deep into all 16 chapters of the book of Romans in 5 weeks. So we're doing kind of an overview. So this is kind of a guideline. I'll use your notepads and papers down there. This is kind of a guideline. This kind of gives you an overview and gets into the heart of the book of Romans. This is a quick introduction, and I mean quick because there's a lot to cover in a short amount of time. This is one of 5, as it says that they're one of 5 lectures that takes us through the whole book of Romans. We're going to be looking at in 5 Wednesdays. We're going to look at righteousness is required, righteousness is provided, righteousness imparted, righteousness proved, and righteousness practiced. So that will be our outline. So the book of Romans is a book of righteousness, and the reason that is because the book of Romans is the closest thing we've got to what's called in Bible college land a systematic theology, which means it's a system of study of basic Christian doctrines. It's a basic system of basic Christian doctrines. So now in our church, you guys know, we like for you to study. We like for us to go deep. We like to know the Word. Part of that is doing it outside of church, which all of you do, I'm certain, in this room. And but for viewing audience out in the internet world, it's good to not rely upon this solely to get all of your understanding of the book of Romans. Take these basic concepts and then apply them to the things you take notes on in this lecture to your Bible study throughout the week. And I would encourage you guys, while we're going through this, at one point this summer, sit down in one sitting and read straight through the book of Romans. You should do that. If you've never done that in your Christian life, you should read straight through from chapter 1 to chapter 16, all the way through. And you know why you would do that? Why would it make sense to read the book of Romans straight through? Because it is a letter. It is a letter. And see, what's happened with the book of Romans, I fear, is it's like people trying to get a letter, and they take certain pieces of the letter, they read certain pieces of the letter. It's like, say I sent a letter, I was overseas or something, and sent a letter home to my wife, she probably wouldn't just read the middle section of it and then put the rest of the letter down. But that's what a lot of people have done with the book of Romans and come up with some strange ideas. You have to take it from the first chapter all the way to the last chapter, because it's made to be read in one sitting. It takes about an hour to do it, depending on your reading speed, if you get caught up on some cruise and things. But there are some breaks in the book of Romans, numerically, by the numbers, that don't make much sense when you sit down and study the whole letter. I don't know if you all that's seen this, that's done this before. It's like, why did he stop there and go from 7 to 8? For instance, why did we stop it here when it should have went on? Like today, we're going 20 verses into chapter 3 and stopping there and then picking up like 21st verse and going down, it's like that's where it should have, that's where the subject matter starts changing. So that's part of why we're doing this. Now, a little bit of background on the book of Romans. The Roman church was established on the day of Pentecost. Did you all know that? That's a pretty cool thing. Whenever the people were given the gift of tongues of foreign languages and be able to preach in foreign languages, Rome, as you can, like that. See, I'm going to read through a couple of these. Parthians, Medes, Elamites, these are people that were listening. People that were listening in. But if you look down here, visitors from Rome were there too. And that's when the Roman church was originally established. They were part of the original Pentecostal outpouring church, and then they went back because they were visiting, for the festival of Pentecost. They went back to Rome, and so the church was established from day one in Rome. This book was written, scholars think, around 58 AD, around the year 58 AD. The Pentecostal outpouring took place in about 33 AD, and Paul himself wrote this by using somebody, there's a big word out there that's failing me right now, but there's somebody hired that would write letters for you. And so he wrote through this type of person. It was their job to do it. In order to pay somebody to write a letter for you in those times, it would cost about $2,000 American. It was a huge amount of money. It was a very coveted skill to be able to do this. Just like Paul wrote when we're studying Galatians and David right now. I write this with my own hand. I believe that's in Galatians. And he's saying because it's not normal for these men to sit down and write this kind of thing. It wasn't written with his own hand. It was written through somebody else. That was their job to do that. So Paul had personally invested in his ministry $2,000, equivalent to $2,000, just to have this letter written one time and sent to Rome, which is pretty amazing. Another thing I found out studying, I just found this one out a couple of days, or last night as I was studying for this. I didn't realize how timely the book of Romans was. Most of you have heard about the persecution of Nero that took place, that was the first major Christian persecution from Rome. This letter was written, scholars think, 4 weeks before that persecution took place. The letter probably was just arriving in Rome as Nero was putting the stamp on the persecution of the Christians. So it was pretty amazing. But you might ask, who is Nero? Who is this guy? He was kind of an ugly Roman emperor, as you can see. He wasn't the best looker in the world. He was most famous for killing Christians and carelessly watching Rome burn to the ground as he played his instrument standing on his rooftop in his palace. He was kind of obviously a twisted person. He really gave the Christians a whole lot of trouble with doing things you see here, feeding them to lions. He didn't discriminate, women and children. This did not matter. While others were burning on crosses alive, he also liked to light his flower burnings up with Christians as they burned at the stake. It was kind of a thing that he liked to do for fun. He was a very sick, twisted, wicked man. So Paul, here, I would say, getting this letter to the Roman Christians was a very timely thing, very timely reminder that, hey, God's out there. God's watching. I can't wait to get there too. So, that's just a little bit of introduction. As you see, we're going to skip Paul's introduction for the book of Romans because it kind of just reiterates some of the things I said. So we're going to go straight to Paul's mission with the book of Romans. He said, here's my mission. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Make sure I'm catching up with my notes here. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. So if the just shall live by faith, that means the righteousness of God will be in the just. That's what Paul's trying to get across here. This is the power of the gospel, is the power to live a righteous life. Righteousness is demanded of all people. And it says in Romans chapter 3 and verse 19, for the wrath of God is revealed, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth and unrighteousness. It's actually 3 or 1 and verse 18. I'm sorry, I had that wrong. And the reason, as we're talking about this overall subject of righteousness being required, is that we need to understand that God's judgment is a righteous thing. So this asks that question, why doesn't everyone get saved? Wouldn't it be great if everybody got saved and everybody got to heaven? But Jesus said himself, it is a narrow way, and not everybody would get saved. So why doesn't everyone get saved? And here's the truthful answer to that question, is the truth is suppressed by all unrighteousness in the world to those people. It's not as though they're victims. In a sense, they are victims of sin, but God is basically will be judged righteously. In other words, people are fulfilling their desires, and God is giving them over to those desires, as we will see here in just a minute. So we're going to look at this definition here of gave them up. Gave them up. Now, you guys have heard this quite a bit probably here lately, since our culture is embracing homosexuality more, but we're going to go a little bit beyond that. But it comes from this Greek word here. Anybody want to try to pronounce that? You guys see how it's amazing how here's the pasta, right? Isn't it cool how that's in our culture? Like we see Greek all the time, but we don't feel it's right in front of us. Anybody want to try to pronounce that there? Paradinomi. Anybody want to try it? Paradinomi. That's the best I can do. Thayer definition, Thayer defined as this: given to the hands of another. Given to the hands of another. So if we look at verse 19 through throughout the rest of Romans chapter 1, a lot of people try to use this to really bash the homosexual sins of this nation. But it goes so much deeper than that. And I think that, to be fair, we shouldn't just pick on the homosexuality sin, but if we look at the entirety of Scripture here, we'll see that it's talking about a whole lot more than just homosexuality. See, it's not homosexuality, as I put up here, is not the only sin. All sin brings the wrath of God upon us. So the question is, what is God's wrath? And I would answer it just simply, just quickly and simply, it's a separation from His presence. When His hand of protection is taken off of you, we are given over to a reprobate mind. So let's look at verses 19 through 23 in chapter 1 of Romans. So you all have your Bibles out, so we'll be going through some scriptures here that are not up on the screen, so because, for the sake of time. So it says, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead. So they're without excuse. So what this is basically telling us is, the evidence of God is all around us. You'd have to be blind in order to not see that. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify Him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. And I've seen this a lot. I just picked up a kid 2 or 3 years ago, just coming out of high school. He said, I don't believe in God. I'm trying to get a spiritual conversation out of hitchhikers. It's the first thing I try to do to keep them from killing them. So, I was talking to him and I said, you believe in God? Go to church anymore? He said, no, I don't believe in God. He said, I believe in science. Okay, so Christians can't believe in science? The first response I had was, well, I love science. I didn't really love science until I became a Christian. There's so much science. And he just couldn't wrap his head around that. It's amazing. That's kind of the same thing the Bible is saying here, is professing to become wise, they become fools. Because what they're doing is they're saying, like, I believe in science. Scientists have the keys and the answers. They're studying this stuff out. They're wise. But they deny the one true God. The Bible defines a fool as somebody who says there is no God. I'm just saying. It's there. So God's judgment is righteous. Look at it, 28, verse 28 of chapter 1. As I said, this is an overview. I know that you guys are used to going scripture to scripture. This is an overview. It says, well, let's pick up 26 first. It says, for this reason God gave them up to vile passions. I don't have to go all the way back to 24. Therefore God also gave them up to uncleanness, in the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. So there you see that word, gave up. Gave them up. It gave them over to something else. He's given them over, in that case, in verse 24, into the lust of their hearts. He gave them up to uncleanness. In verse 26 it says, for this reason God gave them up to vile passions. He gave them over, put them in the hands of vile passions. And it goes on to say, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error which was due. And we think that we live in a culture that's facing homosexual problems. We are nothing, we pale in comparison compared to Rome. Because Rome, homosexual was such part of their worship, part of their cultural religion. Homosexuality was part of even their military strength. I don't know if you ever knew this or not, but the Roman army encouraged their men to have homosexual relations in hopes that they would break the bonds of marriage and the bonds that God had put in there, in hopes they would break that so that they would fight more strongly for the person next to them, so that they would be more quick to come and kill the person trying to kill their lover in battle. And Roman culture was very, very sexual. And so Paul was addressing a certain sin in that culture in that time. And we should also take charge to address certain sins in our culture in this time too. But we should also do it with care, with truth, and with love. We must speak the truth with love. But before we go forward into chapter 2, you'll also see that we need to polemically defend what we're saying here in Romans chapter 1. This isn't just talking about homosexuals. I said that already, but if you go on to read that, it says, and even they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind to do the things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who, knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. So Paul pretty much left it wide open here that sin is the problem. It's not just homosexual sin. It's all sin. And those people are deserving of death, as all sinners are. And so not only do the same, but those who, and just in case, I don't fall into any of those categories, but do you approve of those things? That's another thing. Do you approve of that? And you deserve the wrath of God. And that's a hard thing for people to wrap their head around today, is that we deserve God's wrath. We deserve God's wrath. So now we see an outline of God's judgment beginning in chapter 2. Very quickly we'll run through these. It says that God's judgment reveals that moral man is inexcusable. In chapter 2 and verse 1. Next we see that God's judgment is according to truth. In chapter 2 and verse 2, God's judgment is inescapable. God's judgment should turn men to Him. God's judgment is final. God's judgment is righteous. God's judgment is absolutely just. God's judgment punishes those who do evil and rewards those who do good. God's judgment is without partiality. God's judgment is according to light. God's judgment exposes all secrets. And God's final judge will be Jesus Christ. Now, as an overview of chapter 2, very quickly, we want to look at the Jewish advantage of the law. They know God's will. They have the light. They have the sign, which is circumcision. The Jews had a real advantage over the Gentiles, but they rejected their advantage. They knew that the Messiah was coming. They had the Scriptures. They had the scribes. They had the Pharisees. These people understood and knew God's Word, but then they rejected God when He stood right in their face, and Peter made sure that they knew they stood condemned. They knew they stood condemned. And God's justice is so strong. Now, if you look back just a couple of these slides here, let me see if I can find it really quickly. Yeah, God's judgment is according to light. And oh, how God's judgment fell on the Jews over and over and over again. I don't think any of it was nearly as severe, because they never recovered from it, is when they rejected Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. None of it has ever been as severe as that. Because what happened? The Romans invaded Jerusalem in 1970, destroyed the temple. On it today sits a Muslim mosque, a Muslim worship center, where the Jewish temple used to stand. So think about that. They knew God, and He destroyed everything they had. The day they crucified Christ, the veil was torn. The religious significance of that. The Holy of Holies was open, wide open. I mean, they were like, what is going on here? This was so sacred. I mean, God really laid it to them because they deserved it. They knew better. They had the book of Isaiah, a lot of them memorized it. Well, that's like the fifth gospel, if there ever was one. So you got to ask yourself, before we go on, does the law serve a purpose in the Christian life today? Thought about this. Does the law serve a purpose in the Christian life today? What do you think?
is a mirror for my sins.
Yep. So, I would say it has four purposes for us to know. That's one of them, Kelly. It's the revelation of God's heart. If you really want to know what God loves and what God hates, you get into the law. You understand the law. It was a very enriching class for me to take Pentateuch up there at school at KMBC. So I got to understand God's law, got to understand His heart, got to understand the principles behind God's law. It is a law of, health and preservation. Really and truly, we'd all be a lot better off if we didn't eat pork. I'm just saying. I like bacon. I'm just saying. But there's really nothing in it that's good for us. You know, there's so much. So God's law. I was thinking about this just today. How much God's law and God's ways talk about how to manage finances. Oh my goodness, if you really got into God's Word about how to manage your finances, it's just amazing how much knowledge there is there, how much wisdom there is there. By the way, I don't know if you realize this or not, but going back to health and preservation, did you know if there's things in Leviticus and maybe Deuteronomy that talk about how to deal with mildew in your house, how to clean things out, get it out? Even 2,000 years ago, they were saying, if something's got mildew in your house, you need to get it outside and put it in the sunlight, and maybe it will take care of the mildew. And if it doesn't take care of the mildew, there was actually Levitical priests that would come and inspect it and say whether or not it's healthy for you to have it in your house, and if it wasn't, they won't burn it. They knew about that stuff way back then. So that's all part of God's law. He knew what He was talking about. It provides light for the sinner, as Kenneth was saying. It provides light for the sinner. It's a mirror for your sins. And it also, and we are getting away from this, guys, but we need to see the law and embrace the law as guidance for the believer, too. It's also guidance for the believer. See, if we really want to please Jesus, we won't want to tread the sin line. We want to be as far away from that as possible, right? Amen? So we want to see the law as guidance for us. Of course, when I used this lecture on a different group, I asked them, is the law still applied today? And they said, no, absolutely not. And I said, so Christians can go out and kill? Like, oh, no, a Christian couldn't do that. Why is that? And they didn't want to say it. I said, it's because it's God's law. It definitely still applies today. Also in chapter 2, we'll see that true religion is not an observance of outward rituals. It's a big deal in this culture when you go and witness to people. And I feel like this is kind of an equipping station for this. Know that when you start witnessing to people, one of the things you're going to hear is, yes, I'm saved. Always ask them why they think they're saved. A lot of times you'll hear them say something along the lines of, I grew up in church, I got baptized. You hear those things from people? Now that is the same thing as an outward ritual. That doesn't save us. Those things are evidence that you got saved. Unsaved people usually don't have a lot of fun in Spirit-filled churches. This is because they get confronted with their issues and they don't want to turn from them. Or maybe they do want to turn from them and don't know what to do with it. And being baptized doesn't save you either. That's an outward expression of what's happened to you inwardly. So, true religion is not based also upon the praise of people. As they were, I don't want to go into extreme amount of detail either. It's not based upon how people, view you or boast about you or anything. True religion is an inward reality. So it doesn't matter what people may say. There's been a lot of televangelists that people could not believe did what they did because it looked like the fruit was there. But we're looking for God's approval, not man's approval. We can't see man's approval. True religion is an inward reality. The work of the Spirit of God is lived out in outward obedience, as we'll see in Romans chapter 2, verse 28 and 29. Also, as we get deeper into the book of Romans, we're also going to see some key contrasts here. Some key opposites, if you will. But not really opposites, but kind of opposites. Like law and grace. The Old Testament people, the Jewish religious system, tried to justify themselves by working out the law. We are justified by grace through faith, right? Same way with works. We're not justified by our works, we're justified by our faith. In sin, we are dead. In Christ, we are living. There's flesh and spirit. Flesh being sinful, walking by the Spirit is living a righteous life. You have death in Adam, but life in Christ. We're a slave to sin, but we're free in Christ. So there's some key contrasts. Just some things to be looking for if you're taking notes. So let's look at chapter 2 and verse 1. We already kind of flipped through these very quickly. But it says very clearly, "Therefore, you're inexcusable, O man, whoever you are to judge, and whatever things you judge, another you condemn yourself. For you who judge practice the same things." So we're talking about how righteousness is required. What unrighteous action? I'm going to ask you, what unrighteous action do you think Paul is getting ready to address through the power of the Holy Spirit? Starts with an H. Biggest criticism of the whole church. Yep, hypocrisy. Yep, God will take care of the hypocrites. You all heard me say a bunch of times. I hear a lot of people when I do street ministry say, "I don't like to come to church. There's a lot of hypocrites there." And so we're trying to change that. God doesn't like hypocrites either. So let's try to change that. Next, you'll see that we know that the judgment of God is according to the truth against those who practice such things. "And do you think this, O man, you who judge those practicing such things and doing the same, you will escape the judgment of God? Or do you despise the riches of His goodness, forbearance and long-suffering, not knowing that the goodness of God leads you to repentance? But in accordance with your hardness, your impenitent heart, you are treasuring up for yourself wrath in the day of wrath and the revelation of the righteous judgment of God." This is where my notes are here messed up. There we go. Righteous judgment of God, who will render to each one according to his deeds. So there you see the standard of judgment. How will we be judged? According to our deeds. Now this is kind of different than what you will hear in some other circles. You'll hear that you're judged alone just because you've made a profession of faith. But if your profession of faith is not being worked out in an outward way, if you're not living what you're professing, then you're a hypocrite and you will be judged. You're judged, each one according to his deeds. And it also says that in the final chapters of Revelation, that Jesus judged each one according to his works, which works and deeds are interchangeable. Eternal life. Now check this out. You're seeing this word eternal life. You should always pay attention when you see that together, right? Eternal life to those who by patient continuance in doing good seek for glory, honor, and immortality. Now the last group I lectured this same lecture to, there was actually somebody in there who did not want to believe that right there. She said, "Well, I made a profession of faith and that'll be good enough to get me to heaven." I said, "But what about eternal life to those by patient continuance?" That's a big word there. That means to continue on in the things that you profess. In doing good, seek for glory, honor, and immortality. And you just about have to ignore the whole book of Hebrews to come up with anything else. And this example right here to say that, all you got to do is make a profession of faith, get baptized, be a good church goer, and pay your tithe, and you'll be fine to go to heaven. That's not Christianity. Christianity is a deepening sense of God's presence upon your life. And when God's presence is on your life, you'll have a deeper revelation of what sin is, and He will change in your heart. He will continuously change you and take you away from sin, continuously sanctify you, and just continuously take you away from that kind of life. It says, "But to those who are self-seeking and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation and wrath, tribulation and anguish on every soul of man who does evil, of the Jew first and also the Greek." See, again, Paul is trying to get across to these people that it doesn't matter what, we could use this today, if you will. We've got a cross-denominational group here, so I can say things like this. It's okay. We could also say something that along the lines of on every soul of man of the Baptist first and also the Methodist. Or the Catholic first and also the Christian church over here. I'm trying to think of another church, the Presbyterian church. What Paul's basically saying here, it doesn't really matter what's on the top of your door. It doesn't matter your lineage. It doesn't matter where you came from or if your daddy was a preacher or anything like that. What matters is, are you Are you living for Jesus? And that's what it is. Are you allowing God to change your life? His presence of God rests upon you. For not the hearers of the law are just in the sight of God, but the doers of the law will be justified. That's a key word in the book of Romans. Justified. You'll see that show up. Justified, justified, over and over and over again. But notice how that says that there. For not the hearers of the law are just in the sight of God, but the doers of the law will be justified. And anybody else think of anywhere in the Scriptures, in the New Testament especially, that says something like that? Hearers of the Word, right? And James. What about Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount? Anybody know anything on the Sermon on the Mount that says that?
It says, "Now they that hunger and thirst after righteousness." Well, that's the Beatitudes, that's not.
That says the Beatitudes. How about in chapter 6 of the Sermon on the Mount, where he talks about he did not come to do away with the law, but to establish the law, to fulfill the law. What about in chapter 7 of Matthew, where he talked about that there'll be many, and that they will say, "Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not cast out many demons in your name?" And he goes on and he says, "Depart from me, you who work iniquity." It's not just about hearing, it's about doing. It's about applying this to your life. It says, "Who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing, or else excusing them." Now, according to Christian history, there wasn't a lot of real deep teaching through the Romans at this time, until this later came to be. I mean, it was kind of an untapped territory. The church was kind of doing things, and there. So Paul is again trying to reach in here and say, your conscience will bear witness. You may not have all the light in the world like we do down here, like the guys over in Ephesus and Galatia. Maybe you feel that way. You might not have the light of somebody who's been in church for 100 years or something like that. Your conscience will bear witness to you. You will want to depart from sin. And so Paul steps it up a notch again and says, "You therefore who teach another, do you not teach yourself? You who preach that a man should not steal, do you steal? You who say do not commit adultery, do not commit adultery. Do you commit adultery? You who abhor idols, do you rob temples? You who make your boast in the law, do you dishonor God through the breaking of the law? For the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you, as it is written." Man, I would not want to have those words written to me, for sure. So we're looking at verses 21. Let me get back in with my notes here. Look at 24. So then we go and see that we're going to skip to verse 28. That outward religion is not what Paul's trying to teach you. He's not talking about a coming to church kind of Christianity. He's talking about a heart religion. Verse 28, he says, "For he is not a Jew who is one outwardly." You can be ceremonially pure all day long, saying, "Nor is the circumcision of that which is outward is of the flesh, but he is a Jew who is one inwardly. And the circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, not in the letter, whose praise is not from men, but from God." And that's a pretty awesome thing right there to talk about this. I asked our last group, I said, "Did you go to a heart doctor and request this?" And he won't be able to tell you what he's talking about. He said, I need a circumcision of the heart. My Bible tells me that. That'd be a good way to witness to your heart doctor next time you're there. It's like, the Bible keeps telling me about this circumcision of the heart. You ever heard of that? They're like, well, that's crazy. What are you talking about? So it's actually being clipped from sin. Having sin taken out of your heart. It's an amazing thing. And only the Holy Spirit of God can do that. So it brings us to righteousness is required to pass the judgment. Adam Clark in his commentary said on this, "For he is not a Jew." "For he is not a Jew, a genuine member of the Church of God, who has only an outward profession. But he is a Jew, a true member of the Church of God, which is one inwardly, who has his heart purified according to what God has uniformly prescribed by his prophets. For a circumcision is of the heart in the Spirit, by the Spirit of God. who is the author of all spiritual affections and holy purposes, or everything here is to be understood spiritually and not literally. For without holiness, none can please God, and without holiness, none can see Him. So Paul is setting up like every good gospel preacher has done since. He is beginning with, here's your need. Here is your need. We all deserve wrath. We all deserve punishment. And you can't understand the grace of God until you understand the fear of the Lord. We have to be brought into the fear of the Lord in order to understand the grace of God, the goodness of God. And that's my fear. One of the biggest fears I have in the church today is we don't go by this Bible system anymore. We hit people all the time with the grace of God, the goodness of God, and all those things, and that's all well and good. But how many sermons do you really hear about the fear of the Lord? How many sermons do you really hear about sin, about wrath, about judgment? And it's all a reality, whether we want to turn a blind eye to it or not. And that's why Paul started this out. Remember, one of the old Wesleyan Arminian theologians from around the turn of the century, W.B. Godby, one of my favorites, he would start every revival, every scheduled revival. He said he would spend the first however long he needed to until people's hearts were broken on the law. He said, I would preach the law until people had tears in their eyes. Then I would preach grace. Then I would preach the good news. Then I'd let them know that God is there to save them. But you can't understand the goodness till you understand the wrath. So now we're getting into chapter 3. I'm doing pretty good on time. Pretty surprised, to be honest with you. Paul asks and answers 4 important questions in chapter 3, verse 1. So, let's look at this. I got to slow down. Is there any advantage in being a Jew if the Jews are condemned? So I trust you have your Bibles open. Some of you, I believe. Romans chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. Can we find the advantage in there? Is there any advantage in being a Jew if the Jews are condemned? We just went over the Jews being condemned for rejecting the law. Yeah. He said, what advantage then has the Jew, or was it prophet circumcision? Much in every way. Chiefly because to them were committed the oracles of God. So here's another question. Has Israel's unbelief canceled out God's word? Let's hope not. For what if some did not believe? Will their unbelief make the faithfulness of God without effect? Certainly not. Indeed, let God be true and every man a liar. Another question Paul asks. Then why not sin and glorify God? Sin and glorify God the more. But if our unrighteousness demonstrates the righteousness of God, what shall we say? Is God unjust who inflicts wrath? I speak as a man. Certainly not. For how will God judge the world? So, sinning does not glorify God. Although there are people out there that believe that, strangely enough. Then is the Jew better than the Gentile? Look over. What then? Are we better than they? Not at all. For we have previously charged both Jews and Greeks that they are all under sin. Paul makes that abundantly clear in the first and second chapter, and reiterates this again in the third chapter. Like I said, he's writing a letter here, so he's not pastoring this subject just yet. So in verses 10 through 18, Paul argues honestly for the universality of sin. We can look through some of these, like the sins of character in verses 10 and 12. There is none righteous, no, not one. There is none who understands, and there is none who seeks after God. They have all turned aside. They have all become unprofitable. There is none who does good, not one. No, not one. Now notice that some of these things are in past tense. Some of these things are in present tense. But what Paul is trying to get across to us here is that we can live, and we'll see this more in other chapters, we need to already get this in our mind. We can live above sin. You guys understand that, right? We can live above the sin standard. There's a standard that's been set, God's law has been spoken, and And He gave us that law, expecting us to be able to keep it. Matter of fact, John the Baptist's parents did keep it, even without the Holy Spirit. So it's there, and it can be kept. And so what He's saying is there's none righteous, no, not one. He's not saying there's nobody out there that's righteous, but He's saying that everybody needs salvation, because you have to look at this in context. You have to look at this in context. Everyone needs salvation. He is right now breaking down how badly we need salvation. Of course, when we start getting into 5, 6, 7, and 8, we will see that there are some righteous out there. They're called Christians. Now, next you see the sins of human speech. Whereas Paul called it an open grave, basically. Their throat is an open tomb, verse 13. With their tongues they have practiced deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips. Asps are poisonous snakes. Whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Next you see sins of human conduct. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways. And the way of peace they have not known. And then next you see the very cause of all sin. There is no fear of God before their eyes. And I dread holding back tears in my eyes. I dread that is the case in the American church today. We don't have fear of the Lord like we should. That's almost lost. It's really almost lost. I mean, there's so much about the goodness and the brokenness and all this other stuff, but you don't hear much about the fear of the Lord. And I fear that the church has lost it. Paul's saying this is imperative to Christianity, that we fear God, we respect Him, that we should see that one of these days, whether that we will, the kind of life that we live will be judged before a holy God in eternity, either hell for the unrighteous or heaven for the righteous. The spotless bride. We will enter into heaven, and there is no unclean thing there. And the whole basis of salvation is to depart from iniquity by the fear of the Lord. That's what it's all about. Depart from iniquity by the fear of the Lord. And yes, you fall in love with God, and there's a sense that when you come into His loving care, His loving kindness, and the beauty of His holiness, that you really do fall in love with Him, and that fear kind of it shifts over into reverence, but it's still a fear. It's a fear just like you would fear your parent. Like you love them, we love our parents, so we don't want to hurt them. We don't want to do those things. But we also know there are consequences. There are consequences if we do not fall in line with what they have to say. It's the fear of the Lord. I'm afraid that the church as a whole has lost it. So the law that the Jews thought would save them actually condemned them. For the law gives the knowledge of sin. Isn't that a scary thing? That they could have all that truth in front of them and reject it. And reject it. Even the early Christians had a hard time getting out of Jerusalem. They had a hard time getting out of Jerusalem. It finally took a dispersion to get them out to the rest of the world. And that's kind of where we're at today, folks. I hate to just harp on the church. I'm not trying to do it and intend to. That's kind of where we're at today. We get so comfortable. We're great in here, but are we getting great out there? We got to be out there. That's where the battle is. I praise God for church, but out there is where the battle is. And that's what we have to do. We have to, we have all this knowledge, just like the Jews had all this knowledge. Are we sharing it? Are we blessing others with it? I'll tell you, Satan fights me on the same thing with that stuff. I was praying this morning, and God said, Bill, if there's a crowd out in front of that courthouse down there, you're going to street preach today. I said, okay. I went out of my house and attended the street preach. There was like 2 guys there. I ended up being able to witness to both of them, got one some lunch. And one of them I hadn't seen, had been in and out of jail. I hadn't seen him in 2.5 years. And I could go down there and say that, look, I know God sent me here today.
Amen.
And it freaked them both out at first. But then the second guy just couldn't believe how blessed he was. He said he backslid and he got in trouble with drugs and all this. And his neighbors were talking about how depressed he was going into Little Caesars. He came back and had lunch for his family. They wasn't going to be able to eat today. And then he came out of Little Caesars and they said, wow, he's so happy. That just made it for me. I I was like, well, I knew exactly where
Amen.
God called me out.
Praise the Lord.
No, we take what we know and take it out there. I'm going to start preaching. So, verse 19 of chapter 3, we're going to end, like I said, right around verse 20. Now, we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law that every mouth may be stopped and all the world may become guilty before God. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, no flesh will be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. And so, whenever we get into the law being the knowledge of sin, we'll see next week, we'll be getting into this other subject is righteousness is provided. So if we see that the law is the knowledge of sin, that we see what the law standards are and how we fall short of them, then God comes in. I don't want to just end with the law being the knowledge of sin. I want to give you hope that next week we're going to be going over that God comes in with His grace and that His justification of saving grace enables us to keep the law and live righteous before Him. That's a glorious gospel. And if you came from a background like me, it's like, my sins were literally killing me. Like, quite literally, every time I put one of those drugs in my body, it was killing me. It was taking, another day or two off my life, for sure, at least. But thank God that I saw sin for what it was and could come out of that and live and see the beauty of righteousness. Because I could really say that the punishment of sin is death, because I live it every day. But we have to see all sin like that, not just the more heinous cultural sins. We're talking about bitterness. We're talking about anger. We're talking about unbelief that God can't do something. All of those things are just as bad. Just as bad as how this whole letter began. When Paul started putting his finger on homosexuality, we're quick to call out something that's so visible. But what about the things in our heart? We have to take care of those too. They're just as bad, and they separate us from God just as much. And that's the message of the full message of the gospel. I like how W.B. Gandhi said, and I want to quote it, end with this quote, because he was such a great illustrator. For through the laws of perfect knowledge of sin, the law is simply the light which reveals sin. The room may be polluted with dirt, and the inmates think it is clean, till the light is brought in, which reveals all of the filth, but has no power to remove it and cleanse the room. This is precisely what the law does. It reveals sin, but has no power to take it away. And isn't it wonderful that Jesus showed up and He came onto the scene and said, now, you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. A lot of people think that's power for miracles and all kinds of other things. That's part of it, but the biggest part of it is it's the power for holiness in our life. It's the power of God living in our life. And I do thank God for it. So let's pray and let's praise the Lord. I'm just so thankful for this clear, what the book of Romans teaches us, and just how enriching it is just to kind of see this for what it is, read it as the letter, teach it as the letter. I wish we could sit in here, and I could probably do the whole thing in about 3.5 hours. It'd be awesome just to go through the whole thing in 3.5 hours. It'd be really neat just to keep just unpacking some of this stuff. But I'm just excited. I'm just excited. I'm glad you all paid attention. I'm also just praising the Lord that He helped me get through that. I'm definitely not used to doing this. So I'd just like to sing a song. Anybody got a hymn on their heart they'd like to close with?